Let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the January edition of the Amherst Planning Board. Can we start with a roll call, please?
Shamil,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Gill,
Here.
Khan, O'Rourke. Here. Penberthy, Raphael.
Okay. A couple announcements. First of all, the planning board members are all volunteers appointed by the Amherst Town Board. We have final decision authority on site plans and subdivisions. When it comes to rezonings and the comprehensive plan amendments, we're advisory only. In other words, we make recommendations to the town board. Some ground rules and procedures for the hearings. The petitioner for each item will go first and will present to the board. The board will then ask questions and converse with the petitioners. The chair will then ask if anyone from the public has comments or questions, and then we'll take everybody in order as to who wants to have a comment on this. I'd ask anyone who does have questions for anything to address it to the board rather than the petitioner themselves. There's a laser pointer at the podium if you need. We would ask you to point to the screen at my right, your left, if you're going to do that. The petitioner will have 15 minutes with which to present, and then after that, when it comes to the members of the public, the first person will be deemed a community spokesperson. That person will also have 15 minutes to speak. Every other speaker from the community thereafter will have 3 minutes. A few other things as well. If there is, for any reason, some sort of emergency, I'd ask everybody to go back out the exit doors and to your right out there. Please don't come out here and try to find your way through the back door. A couple other things here, just for your information, items 1 and 4 are not going to have any testimony or hearing tonight. On both items, there's been a request for an adjournment, so if that's what you're waiting for, just please know now that nothing's going to happen on it other than an adjournment. One other thing here, just want to welcome Mr. John O'Rourke to the planning board. He's our newest member. We welcome him. He has a wealth of experience. He's been on the planning board before. In fact, he was the chairman. I don't know what you did to get resentenced back here, John, but welcome in any event.
Tired, and I hate to say it, but kept asking me how my weekend was. I didn't have enough to do it, but here I am.
Okay. All right, let's start off with item number 2, 3999 Maple Road.
Do you guys have a sign-in that you want us to sign in on? A sheet?
No, just,
Take your name.
yeah.
Okay,
That's all.
sounds good. I'm Julia Chen from Manikin Smith. The address we're talking about is 3999 Maple Road, but I'm from 20600 Chagrin Boulevard, Shaker Heights, Ohio, 44122. And I'm accompanied by John Iskey.
Good evening, board members. My name is John Iskey. I'm the director of real estate for Brewtopia, which is the franchise group excited to bring 7 Brew to Western New York. I reside in Hudson, Ohio.
Thank you.
So generally, we're talking about the location at the corner of Maple and Bailey. It used to be the Scotch and Sirloin previously, which has already been demolished. It's a less than an acre site. The frontage is along Maple. The right-of-ways is potentially going to get expanded in the future, so the site is becoming a little squishier than it currently is. Mostly commercial and retail around us. So the 7 Brew in general is a mostly auto-centric coffee shop. You'll look at the site plan and you'll be able to see a little bit more. The main idea is you're going to come into the site with a car. An employee is going to walk up to you either along the sidewalk that looks like it's on the top side, which I believe is on our west side, or in the middle between the 2 lanes to come and take your order at your car. So while you're still in line, they're going to come and take your order. Oh, cool. Okay. Cool. We'll see how straight I am. Okay. Here we go. That right there or right there. They're going to come along those to come and take your order from your car. Then they will walk back to the building, and by the time your car gets up to the door, which is right here-ish, they're going to be able to come out with your order and bring it to your car. So the concept of 7 Brew is a little bit different because you don't have an order board that you are looking at a menu or something like that, or a speaker where somebody is talking to you very muffled and whatever and very loud, to try to make sure that that point of contact is a little bit easier and nicer.
No, I'll just jump in quick and hopefully clear up some of the questions that we heard in the work session. Basically, 7 Brew, the overall operational concept is very similar to Chick-fil-A. So we have a double drive-through, and then we have, corporate hasn't come up with a better name yet, so they just call them texters today, but we have 2 employees that will come out to your car with an iPad, take your order and payment, very similar to Chick-fil-A, and instead of a standard delivery or pickup window, 7 Brew has the doors like Chick-fil-A. So as your coffee's being or drinks being made inside, then it's brought out through doors to your car under the canopy. So it is a drive-through, but operationally it's a little bit different than your standard, kind of what you're used to there. And then the beauty of that, when some of the concerns about traffic and that come up, is there could be 7 or 8 cars queued in front of you, but once they take your order on the iPad, that hits the kitchen and your drink's being made while you're waiting for the cars in front of you to queue through and exit. Our corporate overall strategy is to get you on and off the site in under 3 minutes is the goal. So just a little bit different atmosphere, but no, again, the building's only 510 square feet. It's a prefab steel and Nichiha, which are the fiber cement panels on the outside. That kind of got us into a little bit of the elevations and trying to add some glazing to meet the transparency, which falls into the design exception. But given it's prefab, we had somewhat limited ability. Unfortunately, we can't cut windows where we like to because it's a steel frame. And then everything basically inside the actual building, all those walls are lined with equipment. So hopefully that helps a little bit in the kind of aspect and concept of the brand.
So it sounds like you guys mostly understand we're asking for 3 main things: the site plan approval, the seeker, and then that design exception for the definition of the transparency. If we look at the overall look of it, we've tried to update the look of it a little bit more to cover if the definition is approved as less than 80% transparency, the glazed windows look sort of like windows still and will get the percentages as wanted on the frontages. Did that make sense? Okay. So we do have, I think you guys have printed out versions, but we have little calculations right here to sort of help with showing what those glazed windows cover in that process. So that's the spandrel glass. Yep, you got a lot of those things. Okay. We aren't changing the public sidewalk on either of the right-of-ways, but we are trying to make sure that our landscaping, our building, everything is staying out of the potential future right-of-way expansion. So you'll see sort of an empty, not an empty space, but like a green space in here for the future right-of-way expansion so that we don't have to move a bunch of things in the future once that happens. We did change a couple of things for after the DAB and also comments from the town. The sidewalk here goes to a walk-up window that you can still come in person if you are as a pedestrian. If you're coming from Maple Road, you can come to that door, and we have additional signage to show that's pedestrian. It doesn't show on there yet. We're still working through what exactly that signage is going to look like, but it will be pedestrian sized. So it won't be as glaring and obvious from the road to not be a distraction, but will be big enough so that when you're walking up, it'll be obvious where you should go. And then can you go back to the site plan for me, please? Or forward to the site plan? We've also added the sidewalk that goes all the way close to the end of the parking so that the parking is mostly used for employees. They wait through the line and then they get to their parking area. And then they will have that sidewalk to be able to get back to their car without any concern of additional site traffic around them. We've also added some additional signage in here and will continue to work with everybody, whoever needs it, the staff, thank you, to make sure that the signage that was spoken about for DAB, for just the site circulation signage, will be sufficient and help with the process. One of the concerns was potentially going the wrong way this way instead of waiting where the lines were. And so the site signage will make it a little bit clearer because we know that this is a new concept for this area. Additionally, we moved the bench under the canopy. So there's a bench up here and it's under the canopy. So you guys get plenty of snow. We want to avoid the snow on the bench where possible. Oh yes, there is a bike rack there also. In here, I think. So that if people use that space, they can park their bikes. Oh, it's also going to be an artistic bike rack though.
Yeah, we were asked to add a feature, and we designed a bike rack that looks like a mug of coffee
It's actually really
to
cute.
add to the site.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Questions?
Let me open up to questions from the board. Mr. O'Rourke, any questions?
You said you're a franchisee?
Yes, sir.
You have several of these locations?
Actually, this will be our first location in Western New York. Yeah.
Other-
So we acquired the territory in August, and we have Western New York and Detroit, Michigan.
And now the Seven Brews at all franchisee?
Yes. Yes, so they're out of Arkansas. They were founded in Fayetteville. There's probably about 320 existing. They're about 30 states.
326.
Yes, thank you. It updates weekly.
Okay, that's what.
Mr. Davis, any questions?
Yeah, are there public restrooms?
No, there's no activity inside the building.
Okay.
So we do have the walk-up window, but given the size of the building, it is simply equipment and staffing.
I was just thinking if a parent was in the drive and their children had to use the restroom, they wouldn't be able to get out. Okay.
Worth a walk. Barb, any questions?
Yes, you mentioned that the opacity of the windows is not in your control because it's a prefab building, is that right?
Yes, yes, sir.
So you can't tell the fabricator that what kind of glass you
Well,
want.
basically due to the size, we have metal studs at shorter distances than a traditional building. And then, so we can't really just cut into the building where we like. And then thinking it through further and further discussions, if we were able to add windows, you would just see the rear of equipment up against the wall. We didn't think that was attractive as well. So basically, if you can go back to the elevations, please, Karen. Yeah, just as a reference, and again, not that it matters, but the standard prototype, this entire wall would be the gray brick.
Okay.
In a standard prototype in another state in Michigan, without that code in place, this would just be an entire gray brick wall. So we added these two elements here to try and do our best, realizing we couldn't meet it exactly, but to try and make an effort to satisfy that to the best that we can.
Okay. You mentioned there's no menu board, did I?
Correct.
So
Correct. So
how,
we have, I'm too old for all of this, but we have QR codes wrapped kind of around the building. So we're standing, well, if you're waiting in the queue and you haven't been there before, you can pull up the QR code on your phone in order, or get your menu that way. We do, under the canopy, we have one, it's kind of an LTO. We just have a sign where we put, like, if there's a monthly special, we'll put that under the canopy, but there's no traditional menu boards, no speakers. It's all personal contact. They come out of the building and you order with a person who orders on an iPad. So as soon as you put that order in, it's queued up in the kitchen, and then your drink will be ready by the time you get on the canopy. So,
I was just wondering because there are so many different types of coffees these days, the way to prepare them, what kind of milk to use, so how do they, so that through the QR code tells you what the menu is?
yes, so 7 Brew, we are in the coffee industry. We're in that category, but I am not their target audience. The target audience is younger than me. So they have shakes, they have smoothies. We have 7 Fizz, which is just a sparkling water with 60 different flavors. Corporate tells us somebody did a deep dive, but there's almost 20,000 combinations of drinks on there to customize however you like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, any questions?
None that I can think of right now. Thank you.
My guess is the glass you are putting in is kind of used to almost mimic like some sort of shaded glass or tinted glass, right? If I'm driving across the street and it would look to me like tinted glass, wouldn't it?
That's the point, is to try to meet that feeling without having to try to cut into a prefab building or into the cooler.
Right, for which, as you have indicated, is nothing to see anyways.
Yeah, you can see the back of coolers and equipment.
So the concept is, yes, it looks sort of like a tinted window.
Got it. What are the general hours of the store?
6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Okay, standard. And going back to, it is coffee, but there's much more of a menu. A little surprising when I learned this, about 70% of the sales are after 10 p.m.
10 p.m.
AM?
I'm sorry. Excuse me. I apologize.
You got it.
So there is some traffic in the morning, but it's again, 70% is after 10 a.m.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the general public with any comments, questions, or concerns? Come on up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jerry DeCosmo. I live on Meyer Road. My concerns regarding this, what seems to be a very interesting, innovative concept, sounds pretty cool actually, are the traffic congestions in that area and the air quality. I believe that the number of cars expected to be established, I spoke to the planning department a couple months ago about this, and I thought they said there were like 70 anticipated vehicles in the morning hours, something like that. And gradually it would drop off during the day. And I don't know if this is a conservative estimate or what, but anyway, this quarter is already a cluster of traffic at various times. I'm certainly not opposed to redeveloping this parcel, but with at least the following condition. When exiting the drive-through onto North Bailey, vehicles should be prohibited from turning left towards Maple. I want to point out that there is already precedent for this on North Bailey from the Tops parking lot, just farther north past Maple. In fact, turning left into Tops from North Bailey is prohibited by a sign and the curb cut design. Tops at this location has been there for almost 35 years. It's obvious that even then the traffic concerns were evident. I can also envision significant traffic issues with vehicles using the northbound left turn lane currently to travel from North Bailey onto Maple. But when that lane is simultaneously used for turning into the drive-through, potentially blocking traffic from proceeding to the North Bailey Maple light, especially during the peak hours. Tremendous traffic congestion will be the result, not to mention increased potential for traffic accidents. My concern about the air quality is that this drive-through will increase the pollution levels at this location with idling vehicles snaking in and out of the establishment, adding at peak hours 70 vehicles and emissions. Have this been taken into consideration? This parcel is actually not far from a residential neighborhood. I realize that the previous establishment, Scotch and Sirloin, which was opened 57 years ago, was a restaurant, and perhaps the general concept is similar here, and the zoning is already established, but the former restaurant was a traditional restaurant where you arrived, parked your car, ate your meal, and left individually. It wasn't a constant snake of cars in and out, idling to order, idling to wait for your order to be delivered, and idling to exit. This coffee shop is a different animal altogether and needs to be considered such, given the impact from at least the issues I've addressed. I implore you to, at the very least, require the condition to prohibit left turns onto North Bailey. Perhaps the exit curb cut could be designed to force traffic to the right, just like at Tops. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I have you respond, and maybe you can help me with this, is there any requirement on that curb cut for right-hand turns only out of that? Does that go either way?
So in order to that, we moved that curb cut as far away from the intersection as possible, given the problem.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's really recognize there's traffic there. I understand that there's road improvements planned. We'd be part of our site plan there for the right of way. I don't know exactly what those plans are, but I imagine they're gonna help the situation.
Okay, and you did indicate that you've left space here with the shrubbery and everything
Yeah,
for
so
future plans.
If I may, I'm
You
sorry,
point that
can
out.
you go to landscaping?
Please use the microphone so we could get tight
So
tape.
you can see where we drew this line here and only have I'm sorry. Thank you, Gary. So if you notice the very thin line of landscaping here, the parcel line actually goes to here. But in dealing with staff in the town, we understood that there's going to be a taking down in the future. So we tried to design our site plan, not to install and then remove landscaping, but also not having to defer any of the pavement or circulation of the building. So this site is prepared whether that right of way happens or not.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, if you have any other responses to what Mr. Cosmo just talked about, would have you address them right now.
Okay, so the curb cut was the first comment. Moving the curb cut south. Sorry. The first comment response was that curb cut has moved south, so hopefully in an effort to try to avoid more of that congestion as there potentially was in the past. That number 77 is based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers book that is recommended to try to guess those numbers or estimate those numbers. And it was based on a one-window coffee shop. And the assumption is this actually moves a little bit more smoothly than the one-window coffee shop because you have more people helping and a much longer stacking process. So people can move more with less congestion and more smoothly, I guess. So you're not potentially stuck on Bailey trying to wait for a queue of traffic within the site to move. And that 77 is based on a coffee shop specifically, whereas as indicated earlier, the 70% of sales after 10 o'clock is very unusual for a coffee shop. So that number may be drastically different. That was the best estimate that we can get for the type of project that this is. There was one other comment and I don't remember what it was. Oh, for the air quality aspect of things, if you look at the site as it sits currently, there are almost no existing trees. There's almost no existing green space. It is a piece of pavement, actually with some foundation currently left. In the proposed site, we have a drastic increase of green space and trees and plants in an effort to beautify the space, but then also to combat that air quality aspect of things.
I don't know if it matters, but our estimate on the landscaping plan versus a traditional site, we're probably adding about $35,000 in landscaping over a standard site for this project, just as a record.
Thank you. Joe, I think you had a couple questions.
Yeah. So kind of an unusual question.
Sure.
Uh, Understanding how you're maximizing the site for traffic and queuing and parking of the vehicle, or staging of the cars, what's your snow removal plan? Where's your snow staging? Get a significant snowfall, where do you plan on stacking that?
I think the interior island, no? Would it?
There are a lot of
full of
trees and
landscape.
things
Yeah.
there. That's a great question. I think that would be something that we should look at, clearly should look at, but I think that could be something that we could use more of this space for. We would have to talk to the staff about
Next
some
to
of
the
the plants
dumpster?
and things, yeah, but potentially over in that space.
Maybe we move that tree on the corner?
It has to stay in the right of way, but we have to,
Has to stay in
we
the
could,
right-
yes,
okay.
we could talk through, I think that's a great point, and I think we should definitely think about it.
Thank you.
But
that
we
has
do
been
have a good
addressed. Thank you.
space in the south that we could potentially use with some landscape movement. Especially to keep it away from the north where there's more pedestrian traffic.
Any other questions, Joe?
That's it.
That is it? Sure, but I'll back up to the podium, please.
Sorry.
So the curb cut was moved back. And how does that relate to the curb cut at Tops? What's the distance from from Maple to the Tops curb cut versus the curb cut to Maple from this establishment? Do we know that?
I don't know that.
Well, I understand that
Yeah,
they're
I don't
talking
know if they-
about,
yeah.
you know, and I'm just saying that there's already precedent for this no left turn onto North Bailey from the Tops parking lot. And I realize that Tops has a lot of other exits and so on and so forth, but
It's gonna be further away
this
from
is
here
a
than-
very busy corner.
Tops isn't wrong.
We'll get you an
So,
answer. We don't have.
yeah, I don't think we have that under meter disposal.
I'm just saying, if it's equidistant, you know, if Tops is, I'm just throwing a number, 100 feet from the corner, and this is 100 feet from the corner, it seems there's already precedent for this, no left turn onto North Bailey. That's just my comment.
I'd probably address, I think Tops price is a little bit more traffic than these guys do. Of course.
Tops also has access to Maple Road. They're not proposing it.
Yeah, so, okay, well, we'll get that back to you here. That's obviously probably beyond their purview to know there. So, okay, any other questions from the general public? No, I'll close down the hearing. Okay, item number 3, 750 Paradise Road.
Good evening, planning board members. I'm Mike Hitzel. I'm from the town of Amherst Engineering Department, and I'm here to speak about our project at Paradise Park and the construction of a new restroom building there. Paradise Park is located at 750 Paradise Road on the west side of Paradise and to the south of Casey Road. And it's currently zoned obviously as a recreation conservative district and is surrounded mainly by single-family homes. The park itself is approximately 32 acres, and it currently features some basketball courts, pickleball courts, playground, a picnic pavilion, and soccer pavilions, soccer fields. Next slide. Our project is to construct a 1,200 square foot public restroom building to replace or to, instead of currently they use temporary porta-johns at the site. So now we would like to just improve the site itself by installing permanent restrooms that would be seasonal usage. The building will include ADA compliant multi-use toilet rooms, a family restroom, a storage room, and some mechanical space for the new utilities that will need to be brought into it. On top of this, we will also be installing some temporary, or not temporary, permanent sidewalks And yep, next slide. On this slide, you can see the building will centrally be located off of the parking lot, with the soccer fields are to the north, pickleball, playground, and basketball to the south. We will be installing this new pathway that will connect the building to existing pathways to the park. And then to separate the building a little bit from vehicular traffic, we wanted to provide like a buffer zone of grass, some shade trees, as well as landscape boulders to protect the building. Our services for utilities will be connecting, the existing water service will be extended to the building. The sanitary line will be connected out to Paradise Road, and our stormwater will connect to all existing storm that's on the site. The building itself will be approximately 47 feet by 26 feet, and it will stand 16 feet tall. The structure itself will be cladded in a stone veneer water table, fiber cement siding, and then asphalt shingled roof. Interior, we'll see low maintenance epoxy flooring, FRP wall panels, painted gypsum board, commercial grade plumbing fixtures, including sinks with automatic shutoff faucets. And this is a color rendering of what the typical building will look like. This is a prototype building that we've been actually installing. On our next slide, you'll see at Central Amherst Little League, as well as the North Amherst Rec Center. Oh, did that slide not get in there? Sorry. It was just examples that previously constructed buildings that we have done for the town of Amherst itself. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to help answer them.
Mr. O'Rourke, any questions? No. Mr. Davis?
No question.
Harm?
No questions.
Joe?
No questions.
I have no questions myself. Is there anyone from the general public with any questions or concerns or comments? Hearing none, I'll close down the hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 5, 4250 Dodge Road. Mr. Hopkins.
Yes, good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Board. Sean Hopkins on behalf of the applicant, Sawyer's Landing LLC. Also with me are Will and Alex Severin. Alex drove back from Cleveland in the inclement weather to be here for the hearing this evening. This is a site that most of you know well. Some of you know even more well. I began working on this overall site in 2001, believe it or not. So we're here this evening in connection with the development of what's known as Site A, which is the westernmost portion of the site. I'm going to go next slide. It's a photograph of Site A. It does extend out to Sweet Home. Site itself is 17.42 acres in size, primarily frontage on Dodge Road, and there are an assortment of neighboring uses. The school directly to the north, the largely vacant office buildings directly to the south, single-family homes to the north in the Bucyrus Heights subdivision, and then permanent open space that will be dedicated to the town of Amherst to the east and to the south. Next slide. Next slide. We'll skip this slide, get to my slides. Okay, so I want to show you where this is in terms of the overall Muir Woods project. So the overall Muir Woods project site extends all the way to Campbell and is 326 acres in size. As a result of numerous modifications over the course of the past 20 years, what was left was 108 acres for development. And it's important to note the rest, 226 acres or nearly 70%, will be permanent open space, never to be developed in the future. The primary concern historically was neighbors in Bucyrus Heights, here and here. After we agreed several years ago to donate this land to the town of Amherst, to a large degree, there has not been any public opposition at any of the hearings. Next slide. I think I got that already. Next slide. So this is the original concept plan from way back when I began working on this project. And at that time, what was proposed on this site was 237,000 square feet of flex and R&D buildings. That never occurred. There was, at some point, discussions to collaborate with the University of Buffalo on that project. But the reason I point this out is what was always envisioned there originally was much more intensive, could have involved 24/7 operations, had parking much closer to the subdivision to the north, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide. One of the key aspects of this project, the Severans get credit for, is originally there was a permit to impact this area, which is, believe it or not, 9.81 acres of wetlands. As a result of modifications to the project layout, they've been working at this since the year 2000. We've reduced the impacts to federal wetlands by 62%, and we've reduced the impacts to state wetlands, subject to the jurisdiction of the DEC, by 87%. So that's a dramatic change that we've made. Next slide. It's also important to note that from time to time, there's questions that have come up, are there any wetlands left on this site? So we did receive permits from the DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers several years ago. And this is a letter from Jody Celeste, the wetland consultant, dated July 30th of last year, confirming that yes, indeed, any wetlands that are actually on this specific site, they have been filled pursuant to the permit. So there's no wetland issues associated with this site anymore. And again, the wetland impacts are much less than they always were or previously approved. Next slide. This is the site plan that you approved on September 22nd of 2022. And I'm going to just focus on a couple of things. At that point, we had a 4-story apartment building located here, which is 48 units. We had 44 two-family townhomes that were envisioned to rent. We had 54 additional units for 27 two-family townhomes. And then up here, which was actually the only part that a couple of neighbors in Bucyrus Heights objected to, we had 2 apartment buildings consisting of 12 units for rent. At this point in time, pursuant to your previous approval, what we were showing is 258 units. It's also important to note, and I'll point out here because it's highlighted, we're also showing a very extensive recreational trail that will connect over to the remainder of the recreational trail that will go all the way to Campbell, and perhaps more importantly, has a connection into the town's recreational trail that goes all the way from Niagara Falls Boulevard on the west to the UB campus and trailhead at North Forest and Maple on the east. And I use that bike trail quite often, and I think this will be a welcome addition to it. Next slide. This is the current site plan. So I'm going to again highlight on what's changed. This building, which was a 4-story, 48-unit multifamily building, is now a 4-story climate control building. The square footage and the footprint is largely the same. The areas back here are now, and I put 2-family, it's an accident, 87 single-family attached townhomes for sale. Previously, it was envisioned that most of those would be leased. We've changed direction. We think there's ample demand, especially given that there's very, very low inventory of any type of housing for sale in the town of Amherst. We think that'll be much better received by the marketplace. We're showing 401 parking spaces. We're still showing the 2 mixed-use buildings here, which will consist of 12,932 square feet of first-floor space and 5 first-floor apartments, and then on the upper floors, 51 apartments. So basically, as a result of these changes, comparing to the project you already approved, we've reduced the number of residential units from 258 to 199. And we're also happy that now we have a mixture of units that are for lease and units that will be for sale. Next slide. It's a copy of the landscape plan. Very, very extensive landscaping on this site compared to what's there today. The site has already been cleared pursuant to the originally approved site plan, and this landscape plan does reflect input received from the town's landscape architect. Now going to go to the renderings. This is a rendering of the 2 mixed-use buildings. Dave Sutton gets some credit. He must have known it was going to snow today. Next slide. This is looking during non-snow weather. And the goal here is to have a building that looks a little bit more utilitarian, looks a little bit more urban, but there is vertical and horizontal relief. We'll have very nice lighting. And you can see there's an emphasis, particularly along the first floor, to provide a lot of transparency. And that's true of the upper floors as well. You can see there's a lot of windows. Those generally cost more, make the project more expensive, but we think that's a worthwhile investment. Next slide. It's showing what would be a 2nd-floor balcony in the mixed-use buildings, which would be available to residents. We think will be a nice amenity. Next slide. These are the townhome buildings. They're not in color, but they are, again, 2-story townhome buildings for sale, and each of those will come with an attached garage. Next slide. This is an elevation of the self-storage building. And I want to note one important thing. and this is, the architect made a little bit of a mistake. Extra Space Storage is an actual self-storage company. They have not been selected to be the tenant yet. There's still ongoing discussions with several companies. So this may change prior to your next meeting. And then the next slide, which is a color rendering, I know there were some comments during the work session that this particular color rendering is not particularly well received. I just also want to note the Severance didn't have the opportunity to review this before it was submitted, and we're not going to focus on avocado green color. So that'll be revised prior to your next meeting. And if need be, we'll meet with the planning department to discuss how we can improve that elevation. So I want to acknowledge that for the record. Next slide. One interesting aspect of this project, which is solely attributable to financing purposes, we have to do this in terms of 4 separate parcels. And as Scott pointed out in the work session, these 2 particular parcels don't have frontage on Dodge Road. That triggers the need for open development area from the Zoning Board of Appeals, something we did receive in connection with the previous layout, and we'll be submitting that application for a public hearing to be held by the Zoning Board of Appeals in February. And then also, because there's 4 separate parcels, which will have some shared access parking, utilities, et cetera, we will be preparing a draft of a reciprocal easement that will need to be reviewed and approved by the town attorney's office, as well as Mr. Ulatowski, the zoning enforcement officer. That draft will be submitted well in advance of the February planning board meeting. Next slide. Just to show you again that recreational trail that we've extended considerably onto the site compared to what it originally was, and will run all the way across to Campbell Boulevard, a distance of a mile. So that'll be a pretty cool amenity. Next slide. It's a copy of the most recently issued permit for the DEC. So what we became aware of earlier in 2024 was a portion of that recreational trail would have a very minor impact on the 100-foot wide adjacent area of that particular large DEC wetland, again, which was originally envisioned to be impacted but no longer is. So we did receive a permit dated October 28th, 2024 from the DEC to allow us to implement that recreational trail, and again, for that minor impact of what's not wetlands, but the regulated adjacent area. Next slide. So when we started this process in 2020, the first thing we had to do was amend the comprehensive plan because it still showed that area from the original project as industrial office. You recommended that amendment to the comprehensive plan a couple of years ago, and then the town board followed through based on your recommendation and findings and amended the comprehensive plan so it's suitable to the proposed use mixed residential. Next slide. These are just copies of your findings that were issued most recently in connection with an unrelated amendment to the findings statement. And again, I'm not going to read through them, but you have already found that this layout is consistent with the intent of the NCD community district and, of course, the findings statement. And in fact, the town board ultimately did issue a findings statement, which is the next slide, during its meeting on October 15th of 2024. The site plan that we're presenting this evening is consistent with the thresholds established in that findings statement. And as such, we do not believe there is a need for the planning board to issue a secret determination in connection with this pending request for a site plan amendment. Next slide. Just in terms of project information, I want to summarize. Site is properly zoned NCD-ND. We've reduced the number of units, residential units, dramatically, and clearly in terms of impacts, much better than what was originally envisioned, more than 200,000 square feet of flex office and R&D space. We will be installing an on-site stormwater management system that will comply with the stringent standards of both the stormwater quality and quantity standards of the DEC. All lighting on site will be dark sky compliant, meaning there will be no lighting spillover into the residential subdivision to the north. We did previously receive a no impact determination from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, all the way back on October 10th of 2001. And we've also submitted finally an alternative parking plan for review by Mr. Ulatowski and an updated traffic impact study. This project has been recently presented to the town's traffic safety board, and they approved the project. The other thing I do want to note, because I know Mr. Raphael will probably ask the question if I don't address in advance, this project has been designed to comply with Appendix D of the Fire Code, and I'm not sure if we've gotten an updated review from Krista Hall, but if not, we'll make sure we have one before next meeting. So in summary, all we're asking you to do this evening is during the public hearing, we have some follow-up items that we need to address, and then we'll come back in February with an updated presentation. Again, if there's any questions for either myself or Will or Alex Severin, we would be happy to address them.
Sean? Mr. Rourke, any questions? How about you, Mr. Davis?
No question.
Harp?
No questions today, but we'll wait for your presentation next month. Thank you.
Welcome.
Joe, how about you?
No questions tonight.
I just like to say, I don't mind the avocado green show.
Okay.
I might be the one person here.
It didn't seem like the planning department
Yeah.
staff liked it.
I'm on an island on this one.
Will's side, I don't think he likes it very much.
It reminds me of a tennis ball.
Okay. Is there anybody here from the general public that has any questions for Sean? Anybody else? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll go in order. First one. Tops will be right here.
Plan for the intersection.
Oh, I see. This is what's going to happen? Okay. All right, so you can't, if you put it like this, you have Maple Road, Bailey, Tops, this is where they are. So, okay. Okay, let me find my conditions here. We ready to go forward with the votes? Anytime? Does that answer your question?
Wrong, the other way.
In the upper left. Subject parcels.
Well, actually, Top's in the lower corner right now. Tops is over there. Well, I'm looking at that one over there.
That's,
This is Tops. That's Tops.
that, you gotta turn, why don't you turn it completely around? It might make more sense.
Yeah, north of being up would help.
Yeah, but if you do it one more turn, you'll have north facing up by that.
No, that's, north is facing up.
Is this, okay. All right.
That was,
That's their proposed site right there. Directly across the street would be Tops, correct?
yeah, to the north.
Yes, that's what I thought, yeah. So over here, you have Red Lobster, and over here, you have.
I brought this up just so folks had an understanding of what was currently planned for this intersection. So since we all have orientation, this is Maple Road. This is North Bailey. Jen's, Scotch and Sirloin, Tops, used to be Red Lobster, used to be Scotch and Sirloin. So the town applied for a grant from the federal government to make improvements to this intersection in anticipation of the development that's occurring around it. We received a grant somewhere in the neighborhood of about $4.5–5 million to make the improvements that you see in front of you. So you can see there's several turning lanes that are added and a couple of through lanes. Again, this is the subject parcel. So there's an additional through lane here, the double left here, 2 through lanes through here. In answer to the question earlier, the distance to the entrance for Tops on North Bailey up here, which you can't see, is about 300 feet from the intersection. The proposed intersection and proposed driveway here is approximately 300 feet.
Okay, we got that? Yep. Okay, everybody ready? Start with item number 1, which is 6020 North Bailey. It's been requested that we adjourn. Can I get a motion to adjourn to next month?
Motion to adjourn?
Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
O'Rourke?
Yes.
Raphael?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Hearing's still obviously open on that. Okay, item number 2, 3999 Maple Road. Do we want to hear the condition? Let's hear the conditions first.
There's before we get there, there is the seeker resolution and the design exception.
Yeah, let's do those first. Better idea. Okay. With regard to seeker, do I have a motion? Anyone second? Harb seconds. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
O'Rourke? Yes. Raphael?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. They've also asked for the design exception. Obviously, they're looking for the use of the spandrel glass panels that were described during the hearing. Do I have a motion? Motion to approve Harb. Anyone second?
Second.
Second, Joe. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes?
Davis?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
O'Rourke? Yes. Raphael?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Okay, now can we hear the
I will,
conditions for the site plan?
yes, I'll read the proposed conditions. Number 1, that the consideration of signs is specifically excluded from this approval as they require a separate review and approval by the town. Number 2, that all dumpsters, trash containers, and all mechanical equipment, utility structures, multiple meter boards, generators, and similar appurtenances, including those which are mounted on any part of the primary structure shall be appropriately screened with a fence, wall, and/or landscaping. Provide gate on dumpster enclosure and shall be enclosed whenever dumpster is not being serviced. Enclosure shall be high enough to screen the dumpsters within. Number 3, that an as-built survey including location of utilities be provided to the engineering department prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy by the building department. Number 4, that the reviews provided by the engineering department in its letters of January 14th for the sanitary division and December 11th for the engineering services division be addressed to that department's satisfaction. Number 5, that the review comments provided by the planning department and zoning enforcement officer in the planning department letter of January 3rd, 2024 be addressed to the department and zoning enforcement officer's satisfaction. Number 6, that the recommendations provided by the Design Advisory Board in its review of December 12th, 2024 be met prior to issuance of final approved plans. Number 7, that the petitioner obtain any required permits for any work within the Maple Road right-of-way from Erie County Department of Public Works. And number 8, that the Boulevard District Mitigation Worksheet be revised as required by the Town of Amherst Engineering and Planning Departments and approved, and that the fees be paid before issuance of any building permits. Those are the conditions.
Okay, those are the conditions. Are there any questions from any members of the board as to any of the conditions? Is there any discussion or deliberation anybody wants to have regarding the conditions or this site plan proposal in general? If not, do I hear a motion? Motion, Harb, I heard. Anybody want a second? Second, Mr. O'Rourke. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
O'Rourke?
Yes.
Raphael?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Item number 3, 750 Paradise Road. We have 3 different votes on this, if I'm not mistaken. Start with that. Do I, is that a motion on the neg deck? Mr. O'Rourke moves to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second?
I'll give you the second, Mr. Davis. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
O'Rourke? Raphael?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Now with regard to the sidewalk waiver, do I hear a motion? Move to approve by Mr. O'Rourke. Second?
Second.
Second, Harb. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
O'Rourke? Raphael?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Okay, now we have conditions.
Yes, there are 7 conditions. Number 1, consideration of signs is excluded from this approval. All dumpsters, trash containers, mechanical equipment, etc., meter boards, generators, be appropriately screened with fence wall and or landscaping, gates provided on the dumpster enclosure. Then they have to be closed when it's not being serviced. As-built record drawings, including location and utilities, be provided to the engineering department prior to the issuance of COs. Number 4, that the requirements of the Town of Amherst Building Department's plumbing inspectors, letter dated December 6, 2024, be addressed to the satisfaction of the inspector. Number 5, that the concerns raised by the zoning enforcement officer, planning department staff, and the town's landscape architect in the Town of Amherst Planning Department letter dated January 8th, 2025, be addressed to the satisfaction of the respective individuals. Number 6, that the concerns raised by the Town of Amherst Engineering Department related to sanitary sewage in their letter dated January 9th, 2025, be addressed to the satisfaction of that department. And number 7, that the concerns raised by the Town of Amherst Engineering Department, Engineering Services Division, in their letter dated December 23rd, 2024, be addressed to the satisfaction of that division. That's all I got.
Thank you. Has everybody heard and understood the various conditions? Any questions or deliberation anybody wants to have? Any discussion regarding the site plan approval? With that, I would ask for a motion. Move to approve, Mr. O'Rourke. Any second?
Second?
Second, Joe. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
O'Rourke?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. And then on to item number 5. We're looking to keep the hearing open and adjourn to next month. Do I hear a motion? Do we need to what? Oh,
5,500.
thank you. I forgot about number 4.
No
Thank you.
report. They requested an adjournment until next month.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Motion to adjourn?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
O'Rourke? Raphael?
Yes.
Okay. Passes 5-0. Okay, sorry about that. Now on to item number 5. This was 4250 Dodge Road. And again, we were looking to keep the hearing open and adjourn to next month after they get before ZBA. Motion to approve,
Motion to adjourn?
or motion to adjourn my approval? Or approve my adjournment?
Motion to adjourn?
There you go. Any second to Joe's motion? Second, Mr. O'Rourke, roll call, please.
Jamil,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Gill,
Yes.
O'Rourke,
Yes.
Raphael.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Okay.
Minutes.
And has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? You got it? We got enough votes here. We got 4 then. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of last month's meeting? 2 months ago, actually. November meeting. Move, second? Second. Herb, second? Did you move?
I did.
You didn't.
Joe did.
No, I didn't hear anything from that. Sorry about that. Okay, roll call, please.
Jamil.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Gill,
Yes.
O'Rourke, Raphael.
Yes.
Passes 4-0. Okay, and with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn to next month? Motion, Mr. Dick?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Second, roll call? Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
O'Rourke.
Yes.
5-0. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. That's all right.